Little Nightmares 2. When people talk about the goats of horror, they usually bring up Outlast or Amnesia. And look, I get it. Those games redefine the genre. But they gave you a camera or a lantern. They gave you a job. Little Nightmares 2 does something far more terrifying. It gives you the perspective of a child. This isn't just the best game in its series, it's a masterclass in scale. In this world, you aren't just a character with a health bar, you are a tiny, fragile speck in a reality built for giants. Every chair is a mountain, every door is a monolith, and every creature is a grotesque, towering nightmare that makes you feel utterly powerless. Tarsier Studios didn't just build a scary game, they built an atmosphere so thick and oppressive that you feel like you're living inside it. The legacy of Little Nightmares 2 isn't about jump scares, it's about the feeling of being hunted. When you're sprinting through the hospital or hiding under a table while the teacher's neck stretches across the room, it doesn't feel like the character's survival, it feels like your own. You get so immersed in the sound design and the warped visuals that the line between player and protagonist disappears. It proves that you don't need a first-person camera to be in the game. You just need a world that makes you feel small enough to be crushed. That is a level of psychological immersion that most AAA horror games are too afraid to touch. Resident Evil 2. If Little Nightmares is about feeling small, Resident Evil 2 is about the legacy of being trapped. Whether you're playing the 1998 original or the 2019 remake, the Raccoon City Police Department is arguably the most iconic haunted house in gaming history. This is the peak of classic survival horror. It's not about how many bullets you have, it's about how many you don't have. The genius of RE2 lies in its pressure cooker design. You are constantly making choices. Do I use my last 3 handgun bullets to drop this zombie, or do I take a hit and save them for whatever is behind the next door? This game defines the legacy of atmospheric dread. The way the wood floor creaks, the distant sound of shattering glass, and the constant heavy rain outside create a feeling of isolation that very few games have ever matched. But we have to talk about the X factor. Mr. X. He is the ultimate personification of an unstoppable legacy. The moment you hear those heavy, rhythmic footsteps echoing from the floor above you, the game changes. It's no longer just a puzzle solver, it's a game of cat and mouse. RE2 proved that horror is most effective when you give the player a safe space, like the main hall, and then slowly take that safety away. It's the game that taught us that sometimes the most terrifying thing isn't the monster you can see, but the one you can hear coming for you from the next room over.
Dead Space. In 2008, horror went to space, and it never came back the same. Dead Space is a legendary entry because it didn't just try to be scary, it tried to be smart. While most games at the time were busy putting ammo counters and health bars all over your screen, Dead Space integrated everything into Isaac's suit. This diegetic UI meant you never looked away from the horror. You were always in the Ishimura, and that is a massive part of its legacy. But the real reason this game stays in our nightmares is the strategic dismemberment. Visceral games flipped the script on every shooter fan. Headshots didn't matter anymore. To survive the necromorphs, you had to be surgical. You had to cut off limbs while panicking in a dark, rusted hallway. This created a unique type of tension where you aren't just spraying and praying, you're making split-second tactical decisions while a monster made of human remains screams in your face. The Ishimura itself is a character. It's a tomb of industrial metal and flickering lights that feels claustrophobic even in the vacuum of space. The sound design, the clanging of pipes, the distant scurrying in the vents keeps you in a constant state of fight or flight. Dead Space proved that you could mix high-octane action with genuine, bone-chilling body horror without losing the scare factor. It's the perfect bridge between the slow burn of classic horror and the intensity of modern gaming, and it remains the gold standard for sci-fi terror. Silent Hill 2. If Resident Evil is the king of survival, Silent Hill 2 is the undisputed king of the soul. This isn't just a game, it's a psychological autopsy. While other horror titles focus on external threats like zombies or aliens, Silent Hill 2 focuses on the monsters we carry inside us. That is why its legacy is untouchable. It's one of the few games that actually has something profound to say about guilt, grief, and punishment. The foggy town of Silent Hill isn't just a setting, it's a manifestation of the protagonist's broken mind. Every creature you encounter, from the twitching mannequins to the iconic, oppressive presence of Pyramid Head, is a symbol. When you see Pyramid Head, you aren't just seeing a boss, you're seeing the embodiment of James's desire to be punished for his past. That kind of deep, metaphorical storytelling was unheard of back in 2001, and even with the modern remakes, the raw emotional weight of the original story is still the benchmark for the entire genre. The brilliance of Silent Hill 2 lies in its restraint. It doesn't rely on jump scares to get a reaction. It uses a thick, suffocating atmosphere and a haunting soundtrack by Akira Yamaoka to make you feel deeply uncomfortable. It's a game that stays with you long after you turn off the console, making you question what's real and what's just a projection of your own fears. It's the ultimate proof that the most terrifying place on Earth isn't a haunted mansion or a spaceship, it's the human mind.
Alien isolation. Most horror games give you a pattern to learn. You figure out the enemy's route, you wait for the opening, and you move. Alien Isolation threw that entire concept in the trash. The legacy of this game is defined by one thing: the most terrifying artificial intelligence ever put into a horror title. The Xenomorph isn't a scripted event, it's a hunter that is actively learning how you play. If you hide in lockers too often, it starts checking lockers. If you use flares to distract it, it eventually stops falling for the trick. This creates a level of unpredictable terror that makes every single playthrough different. You aren't just managing resources, you're managing your own breath. The sound design here is legendary. The heavy thud of the creature in the vents above you is enough to make your heart rate spike in real life. Creative Assembly captured the lo-fi sci-fi aesthetic of the 1979 film perfectly, but the gameplay is what cements its status. It's a game of pure, sustained tension that can last for 20 minutes without a single jump scare, because the threat of the alien is always there. It proved that the most effective way to scare a player isn't to take their weapons away, but to give them weapons that don't actually work against the thing hunting them. It is the ultimate cat-and-mouse legacy. Resident Evil 4. We've already talked about the atmosphere of RE2, but we cannot talk about horror legacy without the game that changed everything. Resident Evil 4 is the reason modern third-person shooters even exist. When Leon S. Kennedy stepped into that Spanish village in 2005, he didn't just bring a new camera angle, he brought a new philosophy: stressful action. The genius of RE4, and the reason it's the GOAT for many fans, is how it balances being an absolute powerhouse with being completely overwhelmed. You have an arsenal of weapons, sure, but the game keeps you on the edge by throwing literal mobs of intelligent enemies at you. It's the legacy of the crowd control. Whether you're barricading a house against a chainsaw-wielding maniac or trying to land a sniper shot while monks chant in the distance, the pacing is perfect. It moved away from the clunky tank controls of the past and gave us a version of horror that was fast, brutal, and incredibly satisfying. The inventory management, the merchant, and the iconic set pieces created a loop that is so addictive that people are still playing and speedrunning it decades later. RE4 proved that horror doesn't always have to be slow and quiet to be effective. Sometimes the most terrifying thing in the world is a crowd of people who won't stop coming for you no matter how many bullets you have.
Alan Wake 2. When we talk about legacy, we usually look back at the 90s, but Alan Wake 2 is a game that is building its legacy right now. Released in late 2023, it is the absolute peak of what modern technology can do for horror. Remedy Entertainment didn't just make a sequel, they made a psychological survival thriller that blends reality, fiction, and live-action video into one seamless nightmare. The reason this game earns its spot over any other modern title is its ambition. It's the best in its series because it stops being a simple shooter and becomes an investigation into the dark corners of the human mind. The dual protagonist system, switching between Saga's detective work and Alan's desperate attempt to right his way out of the dark place, creates a narrative depth that is almost unmatched. Visually, it's a technical marvel. The way it uses lighting, shadow, and environmental distortion makes you feel like the world itself is shifting against you. It's the legacy of cinematic horror. It proves that a game can be weird, experimental, and deeply artistic while still being terrifying. When the screen flashes those distorted faces, or when the sound design suddenly drops into a low, vibrating hum, it gets under your skin in a way that's impossible to forget. It's a love letter to stories that don't give you all the answers, forcing you to think long after the screen goes black. Five Nights at Freddy's. Finally, we have to talk about the game that changed the internet forever. You cannot discuss horror legacy without mentioning Five Nights at Freddy's. Some people dismiss it as just jump scares, but those people are missing the point. The legacy of FNAF isn't just in the gameplay, it's in the mystery. It created a shared horror experience that turned millions of players into digital detectives. Scott Cawthon took a simple concept, being stuck in a room with limited power, and turned it into a cultural phenomenon. It redefined the indie legacy. Before FNAF, indie horror was a niche. After FNAF, it became a powerhouse that could rival AAA studios. The game's brilliant use of resource management horror forces you to balance your doors, your lights, and your cameras, creating a paralyzing sense of helplessness. You aren't a soldier or a hero, you're a night watchman just trying to make it to 6 a.m. But the real reason this game is on this list is its community. FNAF proved that horror could live outside the game through hidden lore, Purple Man theories, and secret messages in the source code. It turned gaming into a puzzle that the entire world tried to solve together. Whether you're a fan of the lore or just terrified of the animatronics, there's no denying that FNAF built a legacy of engagement that changed how developers think about horror forever. It's the ultimate proof that a great idea and a dedicated community can change the world. Those are the 8 games that didn't just try to be scary, they defined what it means to be a legend. From the halls of the RPD to the distorted streets of the dark place, these are the foundations of the genre. But what about you? Is there a game on this list that keeps you up at night? Or did I miss a legacy title you think belongs here? Let me know in the comments, and don't forget to subscribe for more deep dives into the world of gaming. I'll see you in the next one.